having that North Star and seeking it out, that thing that you love and that you just want to do for the rest of your life, if you don't have that North Star, you're going to lack the radical clarity that it takes to pursue it. And it's the journey and the pursuit of that that leads to the happiness and that leads to the fulfillment.
All right, here's a question. You're working hard, but would you like to add something to the bottom line? Of course you would. If you're in practice. I don't care if you own the clinic or you're a clinician. You want to bring more value. What if you're already providing that value and you want to see something on the bottom line that reflects that? Well, that's where remote therapeutic monitoring can come in. But I've heard about this. It sounds complicated. Does that mean I need to do more? What if someone could make it simple to do? Since you're already providing the value, make it simple to see that. Well, that's what Physiotech does. You can add $290 per patient per quarter by adding remote therapeutic monitoring. Figure out how to get started and kickstart RTM at physiotech.ca. That's physiotech.ca. And I was just talking with a friend of mine not long ago who's suffering with an EMR. I've had a clinic for a couple of years now. It's like the pebble in your sneaker when you're trying to run that marathon. It's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. What if you had a modern, all-in-one outpatient PT EMR that would revolutionize your practice? It would take the pebble out of your sneaker. That's what MW Therapy does. Integrated patient portals, marketing automations, and billing, all at a great value. Plus, switching over from whatever you're using but not happy with can be easy. Take a test drive now at mwtherapy.com. Today's guest, no stranger to the show. He's been on the program before. He's got an alter ego called the Professor of Profit. Our guest today is F. Scott Feil, a professor, a clinician, an educator. The topic today is 6 things every healthcare provider should know about how they can skyrocket their own career. And this is a mindset for some people. They've already grasped it, and you've seen them explode their career with it, and they like doing it, and it's not one way. He's going to talk about multiple ways to do this. It's not really a sell. I mean, he does help people do this, but these are the basics. These are the fundamentals. You should know that these things are out there if you're a healthcare provider. So that's what we're digging into today with F. Scott. So without further ado, let's get on with the episode. F. Scott back on the show. F. Scott, how we doing, man?
Good. It's been a while, man. A lot of changes since the last time we talked.
What's changed? You got a job, right? You moved. Did you move?
Yeah. So, what I did was still within the same university, but I got a new promotion to senior learning and development specialist, whatever the heck that means.
What does that mean? Senior?
Yeah. So essentially, I help educate the educators.
Smart move.
Yeah, so our university has PTs, OTs, speech therapists, NPs, PAs, nursing. We have all the above, right? And my job is to help all of the faculty that teach in those programs be the best version of themselves they can be.
Yeah.
So learning how to, implement and teach strategies that are going to help stick, right? Help the information stick with their students. Really try to help elevate them to master communicator type levels, right? Because we all know that that's probably the best way to teach is to be a good communicator.
Right.
And then I also help the students learn. That's another side of it. I really get to use my EDD a lot more with this new position. I'll still be teaching in the DPT program a little bit. But the majority of it will be helping educators educate and students learn. So I'm excited.
I got a buddy who went to school for ancient Egypt studies, and he couldn't get a job doing much of that. So now he teaches other students about ancient Egypt, and it's a true pyramid scheme. Anybody?
He's here all night, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll be here all week. I read that on the internet. There's jokes on there, memes. It's great. You should check it out. So you do something outside of your job, or I should say, you do, where you do it is outside of your job, but I feel like what you do sort of on the side is tell everybody what your alter ego name is.
So, this really has been a wild, crazy ride, but it all kind of feeds into itself under that same umbrella, right? I've always been beating the drum of hey, if I'm going to make a big impact in the world of physical therapy, it's probably going to be in the world of helping pay student loan debt off, right? And showing physical therapists all the opportunities that are out there to ourselves to make money utilizing our skill sets, right? Well, luckily now with this new position, I actually get to do that for both professors and for students. I get to do a little research now on business and business acumen and what we're teaching in PT programs. So that'll be coming down the pipeline soon, which I'm pretty cool with. But yeah, the PT educator stuff has kind of gotten this alter ego, the professor of profit,
Yeah, that's the
that
one I'm
literally
talking about.
teaches you how to make profit, right? How to make more money doing what you already do and essentially what you love. And really, I think I found the key to life, which is great. It's happiness. No, uh,
That's that. You're familiar with the Ikigai, right? You
yeah,
must
yeah.
be.
We
Yeah.
talked about it a little bit on our last episode. You know, it's cliche, right? But like, if you're seeking happiness, right, one of the ways that you can do that is by trying to become an expert and authority in whatever it is you love.
Yeah. Start there.
Exactly. And then really it's a pathway toward mastery. And that pathway and journey is what leads to the fulfillment and happiness. So like all joking aside, I'm the happiest I've ever been because I'm literally
Fantastic.
doing the things I love over and over and over on bigger and bigger and bigger scales as I do more and more of it. So it's been, sticking on the straight and narrow, sticking on my lane and, helping people, realize how we can make money utilizing our skill sets that we either learn through PT school or in grad school. And it's not just like musculoskeletal stuff. It's
Right.
things like time management and prioritization and time blocking and networking and communication and all these things that you don't really realize you're learning while you're learning.
Well, couple things with that. Number one, we, in my opinion, traditional education, as in you go to second grade, then you go to third grade, then you go to fourth grade, is great. Except when you're done, there's no 23rd grade, right? So this is where it's almost like the thinking out of the side of the box, which is like you can follow a path where you graduate and go work for someone. Now the limitation, the strength of that is stability. Like someone else is going to do something, and then you are going to be a part of that machine. The downside of that is staying in that position will have a limiting range unless you advance. And we can talk about the 4 levels of value, right? If you're a doer, a manager, a communicator, an ideator, right? So those things are great. I communicate it this way when I'm talking to PTs: shoulders and hips, both ball and socket joints, but one super stable, some motion in the hip. There's motion in the hip, but a lot of stability. That is a deep ball and socket, baby. That is stability. So I'm like, listen, go get a hip job. If you're a hip person and you're like, I want to work for someone, I don't want to do this stuff that I hear about people opening their own clinics. I don't need that. That's neither bad nor good. It's just not yours. So that's a hip. The other is a shoulder, also a ball and socket joint, not as deep, right? There's a lot of issues with it. Ton of mobility though, some stability. And then some people go, I don't know where I am. I'm in the middle. I'm like, then go get a hip job and do a shoulder thing on the side. And neither of those things are wrong if they're right for you. I will say, if people haven't heard of Ikigai, it's this Japanese, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm shooting from the hip here. Ikigai is this Japanese idea, and it's perfectly illustrated in a Venn diagram, which, by the way, is my favorite type of diagram. 4 circles, right? Perfectly north, south, east, and west, and they all cross over in the middle. Looks like a lotus flower, which is very Japanese. And the 4 circles stand for what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, and then the 4th one I think healthcare providers have a problem with: what you can get paid for.
Exactly.
And that's not a bad thing. And then the idea with Ikigai being like, this is where horseshoes and hand grenades, 3 out of 4 is not as great, it's harder to find happiness, because if you can't get paid for it, it's a hobby. If you don't like it, it's drudgery, right? If the world doesn't need it, it's going to be real lonely. But hey, do your thing, man. And what's the 4th one? What if the world needs it? You're good at it. If you're not any good at it, I got news for you. You're not going to be doing it for very long, or people are going to be beating the path to your door. So finding those 4 things, and you can put a hip and a shoulder job together to find that Ikigai. It doesn't have to be one thing. This is you. This is so Ikigai means reason for being, or sense of purpose, or purpose for being. That's the idea, is where those 4 things cross in the middle, and they should, because we all have we have unique fingerprints. All those things, it's totally okay if my Ikigai looks nothing like yours, or if it looks exact or similar to yours. None of those things are bad or good. They just are.
Yeah. Well, and so there's a couple things you hit on there, right, that we need to kind of do a deeper dive on, especially since the last time we talked, right? One of them is, like I talked about, having that North Star and seeking it out, that thing that you love and that you
Yes.
just want to do for the rest of your
Oh,
life. If you don't have that North Star, you're going to lack the radical clarity that it takes to pursue it. And it's the journey and the pursuit of that that leads to the happiness and that leads to the fulfillment.
yes.
So you've got to figure that out first, right? That has to be, and it could be physical therapy. It could be, and like you said, you don't have to start your own business. That's not the thing. However, one of the things that we're starting to look at now and that we're talking about, especially on Twitter recently, was, well, should business be taught in PT school? Well,
Right.
yeah, right. And I teach that course, right? So it's near and dear to my heart. However, the thing that I do is I say, look, you don't have to start your own business, but at the very least, you have to know how business operates in the healthcare field
Yeah.
so that you know how you can get paid or reimbursed. You know how to navigate and really be able to negotiate a contract. You need to know what red flags to run away from. You need to know how you can bring value to these clinics or these hospital systems or wherever you're working, right? And from there it becomes a matter of, like, at least if I show you all the opportunities that are out there,
Decide.
you now have the tools to pick and choose what you think is right for you and your ikigai or your path, right?
I wrote
So
two
I
words
think
down: navigate and negotiate. If you
exactly.
don't understand because you're talking about business, and healthcare is a business. I'm very sorry that you went into healthcare and you're like, I didn't go into business, but where commerce happens is a business. And again, the range or the spectrum of where involved that you want to be. Let's say someone wants to be on the bottom of that spectrum. I want to just be a clinician. Nothing wrong with that. I want nothing to do with the business. I don't want to figure out how to communicate to get more patients. I don't want to, nothing. Still understanding how it works, like which way gravity pulls, which way the wind is blowing. Not burying your head in the sand, to me, is a giant mistake.
Oh yeah.
You're not understanding that. If you don't have the basic grasp of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to be that clock in, clock out 9 to 5 physical therapist, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. However, you still need to know how you're going to get paid, right? And if what you're getting paid is going to be enough to cover your overhead and your basic needs and your
Correct.
loans and all the things.
Yes.
Because you could love a job and say, yeah, I clock in and clock out 9 to 5. I work with kids and I make 55,000 a year.
Right.
Great. Are you happy? Are you able to sustain a roof over your head and your car and your bills? And if so, great. Keep doing it.
This is where your Ikigai comes in, right? Because if you can't get paid for the thing, then you're going to have to go do something else. And now you're dividing your time. There's not enough time. Why aren't you doing the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning? So
let's talk about that for a minute, right? When it comes to getting out of bed in the morning, the thing that pumps you up and that really, energizes you, and you, as soon as your feet hit the ground, you're ready to go because you love it. A lot of that falls under lifelong learning, but lifelong learning properly. We all claim that, oh, we're lifelong learners. Oh, we love to lifelong learn. We're going to, but okay, you could be a lifelong learner and continue to learn, underwater basket weaving. And then the next weekend, Teletubbies. And then the next weekend, Voltron. And then the next weekend, marathon running. And you're learning about all these things and you're learning for the rest of your life because you're curious and you love to learn. But is it driving toward that North Star that gets you out of bed in the morning? If it's not, now we're discombobulated and disjointed. And all that lifelong learning isn't really helping you learn or progress.
Yeah. First round brought to you by Owens Recovery Science, a single source for PTs looking for certification in personalized blood flow restriction rehabilitation training, BFR, as the cool kids are saying. Find them online at owensrecoveryscience.com or their own podcast, the Owens Recovery Science Podcast. I do that without notes, F. Scott. They've been a sponsor of the show for years. I do it without notes.
I remember when I first started listening. They're still there.
Yeah. They're still there. I guess they get good results. People listen to us, and then they're like, hey, I want to do BFR. How do I do that again? Well, if you want the guy that teaches the NFL, the NHL, the MLB, the NCAA, all the letters, that's Johnny. That's a good radio segue into my Ikigai. So I love talking to people. Love it. Did it as a career before this as a radio broadcaster. Then came to physical therapy. Thought I would be talking to people in a clinical setting. realized there were so many conversations that either were going on or weren't going on that should be going on. And I think some time and place I lucked out. I was in PT school in 2013, 2014, and I launched a podcast in 2015. Had no idea what the hell a podcast was, barely it knew, but I knew that I wanted to have fun, learn stuff. That was my North Star. She's about the North Star of this podcast is have fun, learn stuff. So that's why it feels like a radio show.
Love the PT Pintcast?
There we go.
Yes. Support the show by telling a friend or by leaving a review on iTunes or Google Play.
Don't forget to leave the review on iTunes or Google Play or subscribe. But it's like a funny example of I wanted it to feel like this thing. So I brought a lot of myself and what I liked into it. I did not want it to be a lecture. There's a time and place, but I can't do those. I wanted it to be conversation, not presentation. I wanted it to be about PT because I just came to this profession and I was like, this is cool. I don't know everything. Let's learn some stuff and let's make it fun. And every once in a while we'll drink beers and whatever. And that's a little shtick, but it's also like, that's sort of who, if you meet me, this isn't much of a stretch. You know what I mean? It's formatted differently. Are you seeing now more than we'll get to like 6 points because I want to dive in. So the focus of the episode today is going to be 6 things or spots we'll dive deeper into that healthcare providers should know about skyrocketing their career. Whatever your career is, these things will apply. All right. But before we start, are you seeing students more open to this, seeking these types of things out? Entrepreneurship, building ships, rocket ships. I don't know. What are you seeing more, less, the same? What do you think?
Well, I think it's a much more well-educated group of students coming up through the ranks right now. So I think they are aware that the debt to income ratio is an issue. And so they're addressing it more by being curious and by seeking out all of the options and doing the research, beforehand. And that's good. You should do that. So I think, just being more well-educated is helping people, especially DPT students realize that there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. I just got to figure out how to do that and who to talk to in order to figure that pathway out. And, there's somebody out there probably doing it. And if there isn't, you create it, but that's a whole nother story.
We live in a wild time where access to information and access to people has it ever been smaller? And I'm saying the space between where you are physically in time and space, and then where you could tweet at Mark Cuban, and if you catch him at the right moment, he might fund your next company. And that's a tweet from the John. And then access to information, I don't even think. And now you go into what has dropped in our lap 6 to 8, 12 months ago with artificial intelligence. Is it's not just access to information, it's context and application. Skynet is sort of here.
Yeah, I've seen that movie. I know how it ends.
Yeah, I know. I'm a little nervous about that. All right, so we're going to do this a lot like batting practice. I know you're a lifelong Mets fan. We're going to do like batting practice, where I'm going to set it up, and these are 6 things every healthcare provider should know about skyrocketing their career. Number 1, you're saying, and you sort of alluded to it a second ago, establishing expertise. Help share your strategies, or where do you figure out where that North Star is, or how do you help people figure out what that North Star is? We'll stay specifically for healthcare professionals who want to establish themselves as experts and authority in a particular field or niche, no matter how wide or narrow.
Yeah. So establishing expertise and authority, like I said, is the key to the journey toward your pathway toward mastery, right? That should be your goal. Whatever it is, whatever you love, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to be really good at, you want to master that, right? You don't necessarily need to be the Michael Jordan of it, but you want to get as good as you can at it, right? So expertise and authority isn't always letters after your name. It's not certifications. It's not CEU courses and conferences and all that. It can be. Sometimes it's a necessary evil for sure, but it's getting under the bar and doing the repetitions, right? So get really good at the basics and the fundamentals and understand that first, whatever it may be. Let's just say, I don't know here. I use this example a lot lately because I've worked with somebody and this was their path. Let's just say they want to be a cheerleading physical therapist, right? Only want to treat cheerleaders. That's their love, their passion. They've done it since birth, and they just want to continue to live in that world. Great. Get really good at the basics and the fundamentals of treating orthopedic injuries, right? That's a good starting point. If you're good at the fundamentals, you're going to get results, right? Then we can start niching down a little bit and really looking at the top 5 or 10 injuries that you're going to see within cheerleading. Now we can start layering in the levels of expertise and mastery where we really focus on those injuries and get really good at those. So you've got the basics and the fundamentals down, you've got some reps underneath you, and now you're elevating to the next level and you're getting reps doing those 5 or 10 that we're going to see specific to cheerleading.
Yeah,
right? So
good
just
at the basics.
Yeah, get good at the fundamentals first, whatever the thing is. If you want to speak on stages, get really good at speaking and public speaking. If you want to get good at writing books and releasing books, reps, write.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, get good at the fundamentals first. That's the starting point. That's the launch pad.
I shared a message not long ago. It's like, if you want to be a better podcaster, you actually don't need more listeners. You need to podcast more. You don't want to be a better writer. You don't need more readers. You need to write more. So focus more on the thing you can control. Listen, you could start podcasting and get 0 downloads for a while, and you can't control that download thing.
Nope.
You sure can. The objective measure you can control is how many things are you putting out. Yeah. And the cool thing about writing, podcasting, getting good at fundamentals is they work long term. When you learn that thing or you put those reps in, you take that with you. The thing you spent 6 hours learning 6 years ago, you've still got it now. So number one is establishing expertise. This is identifying maybe part of your ikigai is the first thing of where those 4 things cross. Number 2, you say, and you touched on it a little bit there, it's the importance of expertise. Why do you think that aiming at and getting and becoming an expert and authority is critical for professionals in today's healthcare landscape, or I would just say the world landscape? Yeah. You've identified it, but why do you now need to be an expert in it? Let's stay with the cheerleading example.
Yeah. So, okay, let's just say you are a college level cheerleader and you've got a scholarship and you have an injury. Do you want to go to like new grad Bob who just started treating patients in an outpatient clinic? Or do you want to go to somebody who's an expert in cheerleaders, only treats cheerleaders, and may even charge a premium and a high dollar, but that's the one, right? It's like the cardiac surgeon. Do you want the guy doing his first surgery for $1,000, or do you want the guy that's done it 100 million times and charges 5,000, right? Cardiac surgery is a big deal. I'm going to the head honcho there, right? The expert. So leveraging expertise and authority out in the real world, right, for general public, it just looks good. If you're good at what you do and you're considered an expert or authority, it looks good and people will come to you. You know?
Well, I think people can sort of smell it, right? Like if you sit down, I mean, I have people pitch me podcasts or social media services all the time, right? Because there's a process called scraping. You somehow go into someone's podcast feed and you can figure out your email address. And then you get on a list and people pitch things to you. I'm sure you've gotten it.
Yep.
And the funny thing is, I can tell when someone in an email or in a video or on a website landing page, if you know what the hell you're talking about. Yeah. So I have a little fun sometimes. I had a 15, 17-year career in broadcasting. I've been podcasting for 8 years. When someone's like, hey, you need to be doing this, I'm like, you have no idea how you're saying it, what you're saying. You have no idea what you're actually talking about. Real sorry, but you don't. And I can smell it from a mile away. And so this is why an expert, if someone came to me and I could smell and feel and taste, you know what you're talking about. Maybe we're going to work together. Walk the walk, talk the talk. I want someone, if I'm cheerleading as a Division I athlete, I want someone who understands. I don't want to be explaining cheerleading to you. You need to already know that, because I want an expert treating me.
Yep.
All right, number 3. Now that we understand, we've established our expertise, we've done the reps. We understand why being an expert in something is really important. Now we got to leverage that thing. We got to use physics and use a lever. How can healthcare professionals, how do you educate people on how to leverage this thing? You can already see where this conversation's going. How do they leverage this expertise to make sure that they're being compensated at a good value, right? This means that you're providing something of value and you are receiving that value.
Yeah, so let's continue with our cheerleader expert, right? She's done the reps. She's seen all the patients, fixed all the injuries, right? And is just really good at it, right? Well, now she has the time, effort, and energy she's put into it for many years, established her expertise and authority, and can now use it in other avenues and other methods than just treating patients, right? She may be so good at treating, cheerleading patients that she can teach other new grads and people that are wanting to do that and follow in her footsteps, and charge way more for that. So let's say that you're, teaching a CEU type course now to new grads and to people that are looking to get into cheerleading physical therapy. Well, now you can charge $1,000 per head to teach, a 2-day course on the weekend. And if you're educating 10 people, let's just say, right, that's 10 grand for the weekend.
Yeah.
That's not too bad for 16 hours worth of work. I mean, good luck getting that in any clinic, right? You're not going to get paid $1,500-$1,600 an hour to
and
treat
you like
patient.
and you like it. Hopefully you're good at it. The world needs it, right? I mean,
right. And so
you
now
can see.
it's getting away from that one-to-one treating a patient to like now one-to-many. We're educating many. We're having bigger impact. And that's really where the mastery goes, right? If you keep following that path toward mastery, you're going to have a bigger impact. You're going to be able to educate more and more people and then charge more for it because your knowledge and your time and your skills is worth that, right? You're condensing their timeline. You're speeding up their knowledge and their ability to do the thing you do because you're sharing that knowledge. So you go out, you learn all the things, then you teach it to the next generation. And again, you can charge a ton more for it because you've already made the mistakes. You've had the bumps and bruises. You know what works and what doesn't. And you're saving them a ton of time, effort, and energy.
You did the reps.
Yep.
And now someone recognizes that. They can smell it. Yeah, this person knows what they're doing. And me spending X number of dollars, X number of hours with this person will help me go and be able to do that thing. Now, we did mention something too, or you touched on at the beginning, which is make sure you know how to communicate that. While I think that business is vital, because even if you're not going to own your own clinic or run your own business, you're likely going to be a part of one. And being able to communicate that. But now you start to see like PT is a degree, business is a degree, communications is a degree. Do you need to be the Michael Jordan of copywriting? No. Could you hire someone to do it? Yeah. Could you read a book or learn from someone how to do it yourself? Yes. But there is a time investment because you can see the ROI on, well, if I'm this world expert cheerleading clinician, but I don't know how to tell people about that. Cool story, bro. No one's going to hear it.
Yeah, if you're the best physical therapist in the world, but nobody knows where you are or where you operate or what you do, they're not coming to see you because they don't know anything about you. You haven't communicated where you are, what value you bring, and what problems you solve.
That's correct. All right, we are going to do a crazy segment called 60-second PT. Are you ready to do 60-second PT?
Let's do it.
All right, it's brought to you by ATI, leading the charge in PT clinical research with more than 900 clinics achieving top marks in CMS's merit-based incentive program. They're the team to join for career growth. Explore opportunities at atipt.com. So we're going to do 60-second PT, and 3, 2, I got to get the good music. There we go. And we got the intense music. All right, 60 seconds on the clock. And your 60-second PT starts right now. F. Scott, define physical therapy in just 3 words.
Ooh. I like body, mind, and soul.
Done. You're on the clock. The faster you answer, the more you get. What's your favorite part of being a physical therapist?
I sleep well at night. I sleep real well.
What's the most challenging part of being a PT?
The hard conversations when reality sets in and things aren't going to go the way the patient expects.
What's the most rewarding part of being a PT?
I think the tears of joy and the smiles when they reach that impossible goal that was there and they break through and actually, hit it.
Yeah. What's a common mistake that new PTs make?
Trying to use big words to educate their patients and use that new degree they just got to show how smart they are.
Yeah. What's one trend in physical therapy that excites you the most?
I like micro niches. I like people getting real down into the weeds of things.
Yeah. What is one book every physical therapist should read?
Gosh, what is the To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink?
Yeah, that's a good one. Last question. What's the most underrated skill in physical therapy?
Oh, it's communication, hands down.
All day, every day. All right, F. Scott, your 60-second PT is done. You're off the hot seat. Again, brought to you by ATI Physical Therapy. Back to the six-pack. So far, we've established expertise, understood the importance of expertise, and then figured out how to leverage it. Now there's this term that I'm not sure I understand or grasp completely. It's called stacking skills. Talk to me about the idea of skill stacking and how it's how it's used? How does it help people? What is it? How does it work?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, man. And we've talked about it a little bit here, but like you said, remember, if you learn a thing, you carry it with you for those next 6 years, right? Like if you learned something 6 years ago, it's still with you now, right? And that's kind of the idea behind skill stacking. So when I first started my first business, it was a mobile physical therapy practice, 100% out of network, 100% cash pay. And it was doing fair. It was a side business, and I saw some patients. But as I started to kind of plateau, I realized I'm going to need to run some Facebook ads or do some marketing to get some more patients in, right? Word of mouth was only going to get me so far. It's great, it was working, but I needed other ways to get new leads and new patients in. So I said, all right, well, let's try Facebook ads. And I failed at it miserably. And I knew it wasn't Facebook ads. It was me, right? Because I Facebook ads work. People are using them. They work. It's got to be me, right? So I took a course, and it was a pretty big investment at the time. For me, it was about $5,000. But within the first week of using the new Facebook ads, I ended up getting 3 patients, which at an $1,800 plan of care, that more than paid for the course. And then every patient I got from there on was profit, right? And now I know how to do Facebook ads.
Can't unlearn that.
I don't, but I outsource that stuff now because I don't want to do that. I don't find joy in that, but I know enough to know who to hire and what to hire them for and how to make it work.
Yeah, you talked earlier about like bouncing around, and one day you're talking about Teletubbies and then marathon running. So that isn't necessarily a bad thing to do, but can you take some of those elements and apply them to your North Star? I feel like this is not an addition. This is a multiplier, an exponent to things.
Exactly. So let's go back to the cheerleader again, right? They were a cheerleader, so they know how cheerleading works. They open a PT/cheerleading gym, right? They had to kind of learn how to run that.
Sure.
They wrote a book, right, on here's the top 5 most, common injuries. You had to learn how to write a book, how to self-publish on Amazon, etc. But they now know how to do that. So when they write their next book, they know how to do that. They actually had to learn how to do some Facebook ads so they could outsource that if they wanted to. Again, all these things, it's like, yeah, they're weird and they're different. Maybe they're not PT related. They're not taught in PT school, but they're skills that you can stack and learn to, like you said, multiply instead of just, adding new things. I'm learning new things, and they're still related to the business and to the direction they're heading.
Yeah, they're adjacent, and here's why. Because in healthcare, we begin and end with people. So the communication, the business, the content creation, these things are not PT, but they're PT adjacent. And you have a decision. Do you want to spend time, effort, and or money to learn how to do this? I tell this all the time. If you have a clogged toilet in your clinic, you can unclog it yourself. You have to do the work, which means you have to know what you're doing, have the tool on hand, have the skill, and you got to want to get your hands dirty. Or you can hire someone, and that is a decision. I think the real skill is knowing yourself. We covered that in the first couple of ideas, knowing what you want to invest your time, effort, and energy in doing, and understanding where the return on investment needs to be. $5,000 for a Facebook ad course. That's ridiculous unless it brings you 3 times 1,800. Then it's not so crazy anymore.
Right.
All right. So we go from stacking skills to skill sets versus theories. Why do you emphasize learning towards a specific skill set rather than just theoretical knowledge? Walk me through this.
Yeah. So this kind of struck me with my EDD, right? I didn't know how to learn. I was a rote memorizer all throughout my life. I just would read and highlight and take the same notes, and I would try to memorize it.
Yep. And
that's not learning at all, right? That's literally just rote memorization. And we know now that is not learning. So when I got into the EDD, I said, okay, this is, I got to look at this differently because what I'm doing isn't working. So how can I learn better? And when I started to get to learn the theories of learning, it was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's interesting. But those are still just kind of theories, right? Unless we can take it to the next level and implement and put action behind it and test our theories and see if they're working. It's like an A/B split test. If we go back to the Facebook stuff, right? Like, if I run 2 ads, one of them is going to outperform, then I should shut the other one down that's not and put all the money toward the one that is working, right? The better of the two. Well, we wouldn't know that unless we test the theory, if we implemented, took action, and tested the theory. So I can teach you all the theories in the world on how to do this stuff and how to write a book, and this would be nice, and make a course, and take a speaking gig and get paid for that. I could teach you everything in the world on theory, but if you're not going to take it to the next step and implement it, it's useless, And so for me, the whole skill set thing is like, I aim to teach you actionable skill sets and then back it up with basically just the ability to keep a close eye on you and make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and that you're taking the action, so that the accountability side of things is there.
Yeah, not
Because
just
that's where we fall flat a lot of times. It's implementation and taking the action, and then having somebody that's accountable that will kind of keep us on track and make sure we're doing the things we're supposed to do.
Yeah, humans. We're just funny at these things.
Yeah.
Number 6 will now bring several things and several of these ideas and concepts together, and that's layering revenue streams. What advice do you have for professionals looking to layer? Well, first, what is it? And then what advice do you have for professionals looking to layer revenue streams around this thing we've been talking about, their primary expertise, their North Star?
Yeah, so this is really cool the way this all worked out. We talked about multiple revenue streams a little bit on the last time I was on, right? But now I'm presenting on how to implement multiple revenue streams internally inside a clinic before you buy new clinics at CSM this year with Dr. Josh Funk and Dr. Penny Goldberg. So I'm looking forward to presenting there, because both of them have done that and layered revenue streams within the clinic and then had other clinics open up from their original one, right? So it'll be a pretty cool, talk up there at CSM. But just like the cheerleader, right? It starts with, and this doesn't have to, we're just using her as the example, but it starts with a physical therapy clinic that also has a cheerleading gym around it. Another revenue stream could be courses, right? And camps for injury prevention or mitigation. Then another revenue stream on top of that could be the book that we talked about. That's like, hey, here's the top 5 injuries and how I treat them. Then the next one could be, consulting and telehealth, or, bringing her in to consult with different D1 schools on how to prevent injuries and workout programs they should be doing with their strength and conditioning coaches, right? Then the next thing, we can really start looking at how to take those revenue streams that we've started building and make them bigger and scale more, right? So the book on how to treat those 5 injuries, that's great. That's going to help people in the cheerleading world.
Sure.
But what if she can take all her knowledge and everything that she's learned and maybe help prevent bullying within the cheerleading world, right? Like, hey, there's a lot of bullying that goes on and I don't like it. And here's what I've seen. And here's how I think as a leader, I should act and step up to combat those things, right? So now she has a bigger, broader message on just like how to combat bullying in the real world. Not here's how I've seen it in cheerleading and in the physical therapy world that I've seen, but I'm expanding it out to just in general, life in general. If you see bullying, here's what it looks like. Here's how to combat it.
Yeah.
Now her audience has grown to way beyond just people getting injured in cheerleading. She's got a message that she can expand because and now she's got a book about it too that's bigger than just the 5 injuries.
Yeah.
It's literally, hey, here's how to, create a movement and really start to have an impact on little, girls and boys across the world that are getting bullied, right? It's not just like in her little cheerleading bubble, and it's definitely not within her PT bubble.
This in communications or media or journalism, we would call this public relations, and this would be participating in public relations or doing public relations with multiple audiences in which your expertise can help them learn and grow. Period. Hard stop. And I use the Play-Doh Fun Factory example. Remember Play-Doh Fun Factory? You put the Play-Doh in, you push down a lever, you can put like a star pattern, you can have it come out in different shapes. That's what media is. You put your expertise in, you press down, and it could be a book, a podcast, a webinar, in person, one-on-one, one-to-many. The only limiting factor is your ikigai. If you don't like writing, maybe hiring a writer to work with you is it. Or maybe a book isn't it.
Yeah.
If you don't like talking to people, maybe public speaking isn't it. Or learn how to get over that if you do want to do it, but you don't think you do it well. So these are principles, and I like how we sort of began and ended, which is it's full circle. But it should be something you like, something you're good at, something the world needs, and something you can get paid for. Yeah. And if it is those things, truly those things, and if it's your ikigai, there are ways to build this. People are doing it. This is not theoretical. Look at people who are doing it. They're doing it right.
That's a huge takeaway there, right? First off, Socrates, right? Know thyself. You got to know what you're good at, what you're not, what you want to do, what you don't. And then once you find it, find the people that are already doing it and then ask them. Just go,
My batting average for asking people about things that they're knowledgeable and passionate on, it's pretty high. And it's not because it's me. It's because I ask.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's a bad way to ask and a good way to ask. There are.
Yeah.
But if you have a good ask, and most of the time, I will say 51% or greater, most of the time, that person will be apt to at least engage with you a little bit.
Yep.
F. Scott, we're going to play something called 3 questions. You ready for 3 questions?
Yeah, man, bring it on.
On the hot seat with 3 questions on the PT Pintcast.
All right, 3 questions is brought to you by our friends from Jackson Therapy Partners. Look at that. You get the sponsor read right into the show, and it's embedded content. That's how you do it. Embark on extraordinary patient care adventures with Jackson Therapy Partners at jacksontherapy.com. Perfect for PTs who maybe want to travel about the country. You have a license. Let it take you where you want to go and do the thing you want to do and get paid for it. Look at that. Discover where your skills can take you at jacksontherapy.com. 3 questions. Your first question is a fun fact. If you could switch lives with any historical figure for one day, who is it, F. Scott? You're switching lives with a historical figure.
Ooh, I gotta say it's probably somebody like Ben Franklin.
I was thinking Franklin or Tesla or somebody who invented stuff.
Just the thought process and the mind. I love the way people think, and when they think differently and they think outside the box, that mindset, that thought pattern, that thinking, that just I love to see that process.
Yeah. Second question. What was the moment? Can you recall the moment that made you realize about you that you were destined for a career in healthcare? Was there a moment? Was there a tipping point?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I mean, again, for me, it was a weird journey, right? Because I was an English major, and senior year, I knew I didn't want to do anything with English. I had golf, bowling, and intro to Japan left to graduate. And I didn't want to read. I didn't want to write. I didn't want to edit. So what the hell am I going to do with my life? I don't want to teach, right? So English isn't helping the bigger picture here. So I did volunteer with all my free time at the hospital, and they put me in the PT department. And they were batting around balloons with patients and rolling around on the mats. And like, it looked fun. It looked like I could do that. And then I looked at the prereqs and I was like, no, I don't have any of those. But I took all the prereqs because it meant a lot to me. And really, like I said, it was having done the English courses much earlier on and finished them so that I had an easy schedule kind of helped me find that volunteering at the hospital was like perfect fit for me. Yeah. And that's where I felt I could have the most impact, I think, with my career.
That's cool. Yeah. All right. Third question. We talked about writing books a couple times. If you were to write a book, but it has to be outside of healthcare completely, what genre would it be? This is to a former English major.
Can I use one that I've actually written?
Yes.
So I just released my first children's book.
Yeah.
On fantasy football. It's called The Fantasy Football Story. So that was a lot of fun. I got 3 more kids' books lined up. I would be a children's book author all day, every day. Dr. Seuss. I love it.
Telling stories to kids at all times. Yeah. All right, that's 3 questions. You're off the hot seats. Brought to you by, again, our friends at Jackson Therapy Partners. Discover where your skills can take you. Maybe travel therapy is a way to get paid, doing what you love in cool locations around the U.S. jacksontherapy.com. Last thing we do, F. Scott, on the show is the parting shot.
This is the parting shot.
Brought to you by our friends from the Academy of Orthopedic Physical Therapy. Find them online at orthopt.org. Their profession-leading resource is called Current Concepts of OrthoPT. Takes you from where you are and gives you confidence and competence to take that OCS exam. Parting shot, what do you want to leave with the audience today, F. Scott?
Yeah, I mean, again, as the professor of profit, right? I've always had the motto of do more, be more, right? Like we can't just, leave physical therapy as our only thing. We have much more to give and offer. I guarantee you do. And so for me, the big thing is, all right, if we're going to go toward that North Star, you've got to establish that, because you've got to get the radical clarity that you need in order to figure out your path toward that North Star and then master it, right? So if that's the case and this whole thing revolves around just becoming an expert and authority, you're going to have to do more and be more. You know, you can't be that therapist that practices the exact same way for 20 years and said, "Oh, I practiced for 20 years."
Right.
No, you practiced one way 20 times.
Right.
You didn't grow. You didn't get better. You didn't get bigger and do more. You
Right.
didn't, change. So, if you really want that internal growth, find the North Star and just do not, deviate.
If someone's going to CSM, when is your presentation? Give them a little juice preview.
Yeah, that's a good question. I believe we are Friday morning.
Okay.
Friday, maybe the 11 a.m. slot on Friday.
All right. Looking forward to it. I've had all three of those presenters in your session on the show.
Yeah.
That's when you've been podcasting for a while. When that entire session, we have had those people on the podcast.
Exactly.
Scott, appreciate you giving people insight. I think this is the way for some people to be able to leave their fingerprint on a great profession. It does not have to be go in one way, follow the track, stay in the lane. You can find your own lane. That lane can twist and turn, or you can find an off ramp and use it. So appreciate you doing this and doing it on a personal and professional level. They say the best conversations happen at happy hour. Thanks for coming to ours.